laughing and jumping, yeah, we're outside every day. No matter the weather, we're always together, and that's okay. Singing and running and laughing and jumping, yeah, we're outside every day. No matter the weather, we're always together, and that's okay. So let's go play.
Go ahead.
Hi, Leonor. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to us. I'm so happy you said yes to come and talk to me today.
Oh, I'm happy too.
I think almost everybody knows who you are. I mean, you are probably the most profile person in and I guess in the free play, get outside movement. But can you describe what a free range kid is?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. And you'd think I would have a pat answer by now. I've done this for like 5 years, but all I can say is that Free Range Kids is a movement of people who believe that our children are not in constant danger. It really boils down to this. There's a lot of people who think that kids are in danger from everything they do, everything they eat, everyone they meet, every second of the day, from the minute they come out of the womb, and sometimes even before they come out of the womb, to the time they're, I guess, 18, when they're suddenly supposed to be extremely independent and head off to a very fine college.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think this is, I assume you didn't grow up like this.
I didn't grow up like this, and I don't think anybody who's a parent today did, because it's a pretty recent development. I grew up probably not like you. I didn't grow up in Norway. I grew up in Chicago. Freezing, yes, but as insane as you guys in terms of loving the freezing weather, no. But it was like, back when I was growing up, the stay-at-home moms actually stayed at home. That's what's different about today. My mom would be at home, and off I would go to school, and I would walk there as a kindergartner, and I'd walk home, and then I'd go out again, and nobody thought that my mom was negligent or sending me off to be kidnapped the way people feel today now when you send your kid off to school. I mean, the thing that intrigues me is how incredibly just normalized watching our children, being with them every single second has become. When I was growing up, when you went to school, it was, you'd get there at 9 o'clock, and that was called arrival, right? There was an arrival time. And then when the bell, thank God, finally rang at 3 o'clock, that was dismissal. And now, I don't know if it's the same by you up in Canada, but here it's generally called drop off and pickup, because the assumption is that somebody, i.e. the parent generally, is dropping off the child and then once again picking them up, as if the kid just getting there on their own or coming home on their own is almost unheard of.
I think this is very interesting, because I do, at least here in Canada, but also in US too, it's actually a higher percentage of stay-at-home moms than in Norway or any of the Scandinavian countries. And one of the things I discovered, because I live in Canada, but last year my father died, so I went back and I stayed there for 2.5 months. I enrolled my daughter.
You what?
My daughter went to school there.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And actually, the kids, and they're about 90% of all women and all, like, it's equal society, they all work.
Wow, okay.
And actually that's why also the kids were supposed to walk home and be independent. So it can be used in many ways. And we didn't see any kids, the kids was walking to school by themselves at 6 or 7 years old. In fact, it was actually kind of encouraged.
Oh, how nice. I'm actually very happy to hear that. It almost feels like sometimes like I'm looking around the world trying to see this endangered species called children still playing in the wild, and it sounds like maybe in Norway they still get to have some of that freedom.
Well, I do think it's a different society too in many ways. I mean, it's a small country, and also I think it also has other things too, the fear is also maybe a little bit because people sue each other a little bit more, like...
Oh, certainly here in America, it's interesting because there's people suing, and then there's the fear of people suing, and either way, it has a rather dire impact on childhood because I get letters like this all the time about a beloved slide, the big tall slide that's been in the community, for 50 years, or the merry-go-round, or the tree house, or the teeter-totter, and recently there's a really cool old steam engine in a kiddie park in Monterey, California, and suddenly this train has been there for kids to climb on since 1956. Suddenly, it's too dangerous, and it is being roped off, and no child will be allowed to get on it or near it again. And that's obviously not something that has suddenly changed. The train hasn't suddenly morphed. It hasn't rotted away. It's not rusting. It's simply the fear that if a child falls off of it, after all, it wasn't built to be a climbing thing. It was built to be a steam engine, that somebody will sue. So it's not that somebody did sue, but it's the fear that somebody might sue. And I just have to give you one outrageous example of that here in America, which is that I know you're America too, but here in the United States, our national train service is called Amtrak.
Yes.
And that's how you can get from one city to another if you're not flying or driving. And
I've been taking Amtrak. It takes forever.
It does take forever. Actually, come to think of it, one of my sons is on an Amtrak train right now. But he can be on it because he is 16. But until last year, you could be anybody over age 8 could take a train as an unaccompanied minor. And then suddenly, Amtrak, which is run by the government, declared that no, actually now you can't travel by yourself until you're 13. So they just added 5 years of extended babyhood out of nowhere. And when I called them and I said, why is this happening? Why did you suddenly decide? What went wrong? And they said there had actually been no incidents whatsoever. It was just out of, quote, an abundance of caution that they decided to take away this right from children and also put the burden on the parent. Now the parent has to go with them. So you have to take even if you have, like, you're divorced and you're traveling your kid between, one city and the next, and they've been doing it for a few years and maybe they're 10 or something, now you have to get back on the train with them for another 3 years because suddenly we've decided that it's too dangerous and children are just too incompetent to go back and forth. So it's that kind of quote-unquote caution, an abundance of concern that is ruining childhood because there was no reason for that concern, that excess concern.
Yeah, I think that's very, we have the same thing here in Canada, at least in Toronto. I think Canada is a very diverse country like the US. So sometimes I say, oh, okay, here in Canada, but then I live in Toronto because I hear it's very different from province to province. And as I know, it's the same in the US as well. But we have the same thing happening at our school. Suddenly our playground is not safe anymore.
Oh my God, I can give you so many stories. Yeah, let's hear about yours.
Well, suddenly they just say it's not safe for kids to play there anymore, and that suddenly happened this year. And
it's amazing because the kids were playing there as of like a week ago, and then suddenly it's not safe. Like something like a cloud of miasma came down or whatever. It's ridiculous.
And it's the same, like you said too. It's the fear about getting sued. So. And
right.
I just find that very very interesting, but I do think it's about especially something about winter. And as like I said, I really love winter.
I can't share that enthusiasm, but fine.
Well, it's all about the clothing, but also it's also a lot of. I love all the 4 seasons. And actually,
I like 3 of them.
You like 3 of them?
I like 3 very much.
Why don't you move to California or Florida or something?
I say I only like 3 of them, but there is something great about when winter ends. So I don't really want to lose that. And it is pretty to a certain extent. And I like being able to see through the branches to the squirrels and their drays. That's really what keeps me intrigued. But I'm always cold, and I grew up in Chicago, so I know from winter, and I just can't share your enthusiasm. You can feel free to try to convince me.
Yeah, well, in New York, I assume you are having a lot of street life, so you have to walk outside. Even
No,
if
we
it's-
do.
Yeah, and that's great. I think it's
Yeah.
important with street life as well. I think one of the things I noticed when I arrived in Canada, even though we share the Nordic tradition as well, I was just noticing how kids doesn't play at the same outside play. I'm talking about preschool kids here.
Oh, yeah.
When-
I'm sure they don't. Yeah.
Not that to the same extent, it's starting to be more normal, but the same fear I heard was like, oh no, they can get a cold, and then like kids doesn't get cold. It doesn't get
From
cold
cold.
to being outside.
I know.
Especially not if they dress for the clothing. And you know where I'm from, we actually have the babies sleep outside.
Yeah, that actually strikes me as very cool. Because first of all, I thought, gee, if I had been sleeping outside as a kid, maybe I wouldn't be so freezing all the time now. But I also think one of the amazing things about that tradition is it builds in you the confidence that your child can be outside without your eyes upon them, safe. Which then allows you to let them go when they start playing outside and when they start walking to school. We have the opposite of that. We think that the minute our eyes aren't on our children for almost literally a second, they will be taken from us. And I think that's actually this piece. I'm trying to get the New York Times to run my story about this. And let me tell you what the topic is, which is that we are so afraid for our children that we don't let them play outside after school or on the weekends because we don't feel they're safe without us. And that's why kids are fat. Not because of the food, not because of the, video games, not because of anything else, I think. I think the big issue is that if you don't believe your children can play independently outside on their own, then they won't play. And then they won't run around, and then they will get fat because they will be inside. Or even if they're at a scheduled activity, even if, I know my kids have done plenty of these, even if they're at like a baseball league or a hockey league or whatever, maybe hockey's different, but here baseball, they don't get nearly the exercise they get when they're playing on their own. And there have even been, I hate that you have to even quote studies to prove your point, but there have been studies that prove this point, that when children are playing on their own, they are much more active, not to mention much more creative and have much more fun. But they're losing more calories. They're using it up because they are running around more. I know when my kids were in their little league baseball games, one of my sons would sit out in the outfield because nothing would happen. Nobody could hit it to him. They were terrible third graders, and then you have to wait your turn before you play again. Well, kids playing by themselves would come up with something a lot more fun and engaged than one person playing and 17 kids waiting around.
Yes, that's true. And also, I think it also is something about just being child and just making up your own mind.
Oh yeah, making up your own games. I mean, because because I'm doing free range kids, I've gone to a lot of conferences on play, and until I listened to people talking about the importance of play, I had an idea that it was probably pretty important, but I didn't realize that playing on your own, coming up with your own games and running around and making up ideas and compromise. All this stuff turns out to be like this super vitamin that Mother Nature figured out a way to get into kids. And the way she gets all these lessons, the compromise, the holding yourself together so you can wait your turn, the dealing with subtle differences, like I know that you're a better hockey player than me, so I'll put you on my team, and then somebody else will sort of make equal teams with the younger kids. All these great interactions and skills that we want our kids to develop turn out to be part and parcel of play. And when you have the coach deciding the teams and saying what's in and what's out, and now we're going to stop and whose turn it is to bring the snack, you've taken almost all the vitamins out of play, and all you've left is here's exactly how you hit the puck or the ball.
Yes. I think here in Canada, I think it is probably, and it depends where you live. I am very lucky to live in a great neighborhood. It's probably not as free range as in Norway, but it's especially when the kids get a little bit older, we do see a lot of kids alone, and we also we also try to create a community where we live. So we made an ice rink this year, and I have to say it's been very interesting to see how parents, families coming out, but also kids coming out and playing just by themselves and making new friends.
Let me ask you a question about this ice skating rink. Is it on a pond or is it on like ground?
It's like it's on the ground.
Okay.
But we made it but it is a community rink. Like it's a city park, meaning that we had to go to the city and ask, can we make a rink and get the neighbors together? And then the city said, yes, you can. You can make this rink.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think,
and so they weren't worried about lawsuits, because that's I think the first thing that a park district here would say. It's like, well, we'd love you to do it. It sounds really fun. We have very fond memories ourselves, but no, because what if somebody falls and sues? Then we can't afford to pay the law bills. So forget it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that way, and it's been great for the community. I think probably one of the best thing I ever have seen now what we have been doing, and it's so simple because it's just water and getting
you cold Canada.
Yeah, so and that's good. But if I'm going back to the outdoor napping, because this has been something ongoing on our Facebook page, and I have actually not written about it, but now since my kids do not really outdoor, they are too old for napping, so I don't have to worry about anyone looking who this crazy Norwegian lady is. Outdoor napping used to be normal in North America too.
Yeah, I've seen photos, which are really great, of like a whole bunch of carriages, baby carriages, outside of a grocery store, and that was considered normal. You would leave your kid out there, they were sleeping, they'd get some fresh air. Nobody thought, what kills me today is what I call worst first thinking, the idea of going to the very worst case scenario first and proceeding as if it's really likely to happen. That's the way we've been trained to think. And now, if you think of a kid outside of the grocery store not being, guarded by a parent, you think, well, that baby could be snatched in 10 seconds. And that's really what people think. And in fact, I'm sure you're familiar with the story here in New York City about, it might have been 10 or 15 years ago at this point. A woman, I can't remember, this must happen to you all the time. I can't remember if she was from Denmark or Norway, but somewhere in your neck of the woods, was visiting New York, and she had her baby with her, and she went to a cafe in the East Village, a neighborhood that's very hip where I used to live until I became less hip and had to leave. And she left her kid in the stroller outside napping, and she was arrested. And she spent a couple nights in jail, as did the baby's father, who had agreed to this. She was visiting the baby's father, who's American. And the papers had this raging debate for about a week. They finally let her go. The authorities said she could leave, provided she never came back again and did that again. And frankly, I'd be pretty happy to leave after an incident like that, too. But the idea was she crazy or was she not? And my vote is that our society is crazy to think that children are being snatched off the street all the time. But in a society that's gone crazy like that, you look insane to suggest, like, look, I trust the world, I trust my baby, I trust my instincts, I trust my parenting. You're not allowed to trust. You are absolutely not allowed to trust. That's considered crazy.
Yes. One of the things I have learned since about outdoor napping is it happened here in Canada, but it's more like people are more discreet about it. And I do think it's actually in Norway too. I don't think you will find a lot of people leaving them out of the grocery store. They will maybe leave them out of the coffee shop and sit close to the window.
Yeah.
But in Alaska, I heard that it's quite normal to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And then you leave the baby carriage in your backyard with a monitor.
Oh, and where do you walk to? How far away?
Well, it's just for a walk, just to let the baby sleep. Because the thing about why they did this in the old days and why they do it in Norway and other places, and even the daycares do it, It's because the kid sleeps better in fresh air, especially cold air.
Sure. Yeah, it's like they hibernate. Right.
And also, it's also the nature that actually being exposed to fresh air and
beautiful.
And the air and the sky is good for you. Like it's the same thing that nature is good for you. So that's kind of why.
Right, and sunshine gives you vitamin D. I mean, kids are growing up now with rickets, rickets, like rickety bones. The word comes from what happens to your bones if you don't get vitamin D. Your bone gets really crumbly. And ironically, in this country of ours that's so strong and, advanced, children are starting to show up with this disease that we once thought conquered. And one of the reasons is that we are so afraid of the outdoors, and in particular, we're so afraid of the sun. Everybody's afraid that they're going to get skin cancer, and they have to slather themselves on with, whatever, sunblock. And the American Medical Association tells parents to try to limit children's sun in the summer between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. They actually suggest that, as if that wouldn't, ruin your entire summer, not to mention life. So then the kids dutifully obey, or at least they're lashed inside by their caring parents who don't want them to get sun cancer, skin cancer, and instead they get rickets. So best laid plans.
Yeah, I think I just want to say something. I was a little bit. They say the same thing in Canada as well. And I was like, well, and here in Canada we have cold winters, so I'm going to. When am I going to? Because even though I am outside in all kinds of weather, I'm less outside in the winter. And in the summer, you just want to soak up and just be outside.
Right.
So I'm
the
like,
worry and the fact that there's some rays hitting your face.
Yeah, of course it is like. Of course, you shouldn't be in the sun. You should try to find.
Yeah, I'm not saying sizzle. I'm saying get some sunshine.
You go and seek some shade under trees and stuff. But I and also especially I've heard that it's really a concern by dark people with dark skins as well. Having very problem with lack of vitamin D as well.
Yeah, no, everybody has to get sun. I mean, like I said, remember we were talking about how play turns out to be nature's super vitamin? Well, nature expected you to be out there getting the sunshine, getting the exercise, getting the fresh air, getting the lessons and getting along, getting your muscles moving, learning how to solve problems. If you don't have a ball and you all want to play something, what are we going to play instead? Dealing with kids who are younger who you have to teach, dealing with kids who are older who you want to be as good as. I mean, all this stuff is normal and natural, and it's the way something expected us to develop, God, nature, fate, whatever you want to call it. And we are subverting it ostensibly to keep our children safe and to help them and to get them ahead. They'll be inside, they'll have their Mandarin lessons, they won't be exposed to the kidnappers, they'll spend more time on their homework, and all this stuff that's supposed to be good for them is, of course, backfiring.
Yes. But having said that, being outside in the winter, you need to have the right clothes.
Yeah. Right. Tell me what the clothes are, because I have never found the right clothes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Today's, I'm happy to say we have a giveaway. So I will select the winner of all the comments made today. So just keep comments, and I will select the winner, and they will win a merino wool. Have you heard about merino wool before?
I've heard of merino wool, but I can't tell you anything about it other than how you spell it.
Okay, merino wool is like underwear and long johns, like old-fashioned long johns and shirt. Called the first layer. You layer. So that's your first layer, and then your next layer is.
Wait a minute. I've never heard you can buy merino wool long underwear in America, in Canada. Can you?
Actually, interesting enough, yes, you can that now. You have to go to a sports store, especially for older, for you. You can go, and that's the best underwear for you to wear. Like my husband, he goes.
I know your husband.
I know. Actually, this is something what you don't know, but my husband actually worked.
I don't know about his underwear. It's true.
And it's the best one for keeping you warm. And today we will give away that for a kid, merino wool underwear. And it's made in Germany as well. So that's the best thing you can wear, merino wool. And then the next...
what? I just went online. You're right. There's plenty of merino wool underwear to be had. Who knew? Good. Okay, what else?
And the between layer is like either wool or fleece. or
Either wool or what?
a fleece,
Oh, fleece. Okay.
and then you have a windbreaker,
Okay.
and then you actually are set.
Really?
But, yes. Or you can have a down jacket instead.
Yes, that sounds good.
If you know, but this is for active
Yeah,
play,
okay, I'm
and
talking- yeah.
if you're going skiing and stuff, you will dress like this. And then you actually are set. That's how you dress kids and adults for winter.
Okay, that sounds good. What about a hat? What kind of hat?
Oh, a hat that you close your ears, and scarf, of course, and wool socks, very important.
Wool socks? Really? A matter? Okay.
Yes, does matter.
Okay, I didn't know this, and I am from Chicago, so you'd think I would have learned. But okay.
Well, if you start dressing like this, maybe you will also enjoy winter.
Maybe. Actually, I am. Really, I'm staring at my all my choices. I'm sure for the next 5 days, every time I log on to any site, they're going to show me merino wool underwear. But that's okay. I'm thinking about it. I bet now's the time to buy it because we are, already in February.
Yeah, that's great. And so what's the weather like right now in New York?
Right now, it's delightfully rainy and cold, but not as cold as I think we've had a very cold winter, and that's been rotten. But we just had a bunch of snow, and actually, what killed me and why made me sort of happy to think that I was going to be speaking with you tonight is on Saturday. You woke up and it was, I thought, every kid's dream. It was a lot of snow, but not so much that you couldn't open the door. It was probably about 2 feet. Here in New York, and I sent my younger son out, who does like the cold and does like to go outdoors, and he came back in just about 10 minutes. There was nobody out there, nobody to play with. And I said, go out and find something to do. This is ideal. You can make a snowman, you can throw snowballs at something. And he's like, oh, it's bad packing snow. It's just, and it's like, please go out. It's a dream out there. And finally, it took a while. Finally, he went out with a shovel because I incentivized him with, go find people who need their cars shoveled or their driveways shoveled. And that got him outside. But the idea that you could go outside on a beautiful, snowy Saturday, no school, and find no kids outside to play with just made me despair.
That's sad. Actually, we had the same thing here in Canada, in Toronto. And I have to say, it was a lot of kids outside. Everybody was out. Adults, everybody. They were enjoying the weather.
Yeah.
So
that's good. All right, there's hope. There's pockets of that. Maybe I'm in a pocket of no play, but I know that from having spoken to people around the country, I do hear so many people say like once again, one of the things we think that's making kids fat is that there just aren't enough good playgrounds. Well, there are tons of playgrounds where there's no children at all. It's not that the playground doesn't exist. It's that the idea of going to the playground and knowing that you'll run into somebody there from the neighborhood, somebody that you'll play with. It's a little kid, you'll play jump rope. If it's a bigger kid, you'll play basketball. That doesn't happen. You can go to parks and find nobody and come home. That's why I have actually coming up in May, the holiday I started 4 years ago, which is take our children to the park and leave them there a day.
Yes.
Which is, it's not a winter holiday. I'm sorry, I'm going off season on you. But this year it's on May 25th. It's a Saturday. And what I suggest to parents is that bring your kids to the park at 10 o'clock in the morning, to your local park. Because I know here in the city, in New York City, there are kids going to a local school, there are kids going to a private school, there's kids going to a magnet school. The kids in the neighborhood don't even necessarily all know each other. But if they all meet up one day on that take our children to the park and leave them their day, May 25th, then they know that the next day they can come back and meet some of their same friends. So it's just a day to break the ice, to send kids together so that they have to come up with something to do. And once kids are together in a group, they will. Boredom is so painful that with a bunch of kids, with a ball or without a ball, they will come up with something fun to do. And once they do, that's what they're going to want to do again. Because, like I said, nature has put into children the desire to play. We've just taken it out of them by taking them inside and telling them that's the only place they can be safe and that's the only place they can get ahead. But one day a year, send them back out, and maybe our neighborhoods can end up like yours, which sounds very fun.
Yeah, it's very fun. I will recommend the ice rink. That's
that sounds
good. That
does sound like a great idea, actually.
It is. Well, thank you thank you very much for Leonor. We will go back and chat with you. And
Okay, great.
thank you so much for chatting with me.
Oh, Kari, this was great, and I was looking forward to it, like I said, and I knew I would get to talk about
laughing and jumping, yeah, we're outside every day. No matter the weather, we're always together, and that's okay. Singing and running and laughing and jumping, yeah, we're outside every day. No matter the weather, we're always together, and that's okay.